few months ago, I made a video talking about how a mortgage is a scam. And ever since I made that video, I've gotten so many reactions, so many different reactions. And honestly, I said what I said. A mortgage is indeed a scam. Now, I was scrolling through TikTok the other day and I saw someone who asked this really important question. And the question was, he was so curious to know if financial advisors and people who give advice online actually genuinely believe that a mortgage is a scam or if they're just doing it for clicks and likes. And that is what actually influenced me to make this video. Now, again, let's talk about the mortgage. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Having a mortgage is not necessarily the best financial advice or the best financial decision for yourself at that particular moment in time. These things are so person specific that you cannot base your entire life's decision on whether to get a mortgage or not on what everyone else is doing. If having a mortgage doesn't make any financial sense for you at the time, then it simply is not the best financial decision. There are many hidden costs that come with a mortgage. We've talked about stamp duty, we've talked about solicitor fees, we've talked about the actual deposit itself. Say, for example, you want to get a mortgage of £400,000 and you decided to put a 10% deposit down, £40,000. What you're going to be needing is closer to £50,000 because we're talking stamp duties, we're talking solicitor fees, we're talking moving costs. So you really do need closer to £50,000 to get yourself into the property and feel somewhat comfortable, because we haven't actually even talked about furnishing costs. With a rental, many times you're able to get a semi-furnished apartment, so the cost of furnishing doesn't actually come from your pocket. And when people talk about a mortgage being the best financial decision, they're not looking at it from an opportunity cost point of view. They're only looking at it as wasting your rent or throwing that money into a well, the money that's never going to come back. And again, I said what I said. Not everything in life is supposed to be an investment. This is particularly true with where you live, because at the end of the day, a mortgage for a property that you are living in is not an investment. A property that you are living in is literally just that, a house. Whoever is going to benefit from this investment more often than not are your children, because by the time it would become an investment for you, you are old and grey. Except, of course, you're fortunate enough to have some form of generational wealth. But what you're looking at it as is a safety net more than an investment. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get a mortgage. That's not what I'm saying. Please, let's be guided, because I don't want someone coming into my comments and just spewing things that I didn't say. No one wants to be 65 and still paying rent. That is less than ideal. Especially because at 65, you're starting to get toward pension age and your pension income is most probably going to be less than your working income. So at that point, you want to make sure that a huge cost, which typically is your mortgage or rent, is sorted. If you have decided that you don't want to get a mortgage in the younger parts of your life or in the earlier years of your journey, then you must be putting that money that we've spoken about into something that would give you some form of comfort, such that you can either outright buy a property when you're closer to retirement or get an investment property that would give you a form of monthly income that would allow you the opportunity to continue to rent into your old age. But Thinking of a mortgage on a residential property as an investment is a fallacy. It is not that. It is simply just a place for you to rest. It is simply a safety net, and it is simply a place for you to call home. Not everything in life has to be an investment. And again, a mortgage on a property that you are living in is not an investment. This is quite different if you're talking about a mortgage on an investment property, because at that point you are going to get monthly returns that can actually be beneficial for you. Plus, when you decide to sell the property in the future, you can get that money back. But the thing with mortgages for properties that you are living in is, if you have bought this property for £500,000 on, I don't know, Government Street, it is a 3-bed property that cost £500,000 on Government Street. What would qualify it as an investment means that over the next 30 years, for example, it has now appreciated from £500,000 to £2 million. And when you decide to then sell this property for £2 million, you can make an upgrade because your money has actually now grown as what a typical investment would be. But what you'd find is, when people then sell their property, or that £2 million house as it has now appreciated in 30 years' time, they can't even afford to get the house next door on that same street, because as their value was increasing, so was everyone else's value, such that now it is equal. It is not an investment. For it to then be an investment would then mean them usually downgrading to a smaller property, as many people do towards retirement, or moving to a completely different area that is cheaper. In that light, you may then call it some form of investment. But if you were to trade it and keep it a buck, buying a similar property on that same street would be impossible, because you can't have that upgrade. The best you can do is get, I don't know, exact same property that you had. So was that really an investment, or was it just an exchange? Do you understand what I mean? Because at this point now, people want to say, oh, my property appreciated from £500,000 to now £2 million. Oh, I've gained £1.5 million. Yes, you may have gained £1.5 million theoretically, but practically, you haven't factored in how much maintenance you did on that property over the 30-year duration, how much renovations you did on that property over the 30-year duration, how much taxes you paid on that property over the 30-year duration. You haven't factored all these things in. And by the time you actually do the real profits that you've made on that residential property, you will find it to be less than you actually thought it was. The boiler broke, you had to fix it. The bathroom broke, you had to fix it. These things come out of your pocket, versus with renting, where someone else is responsible and all you have to do is pay your rent. Now, people want to talk about, oh, the rent goes up every single month, this, that, and that. Yes, it may go up every single year, but so does your mortgage. After you've done the initial fixed term, which many people tend to do for either 2 or 5 years, there would be a revision of the interest, and it can go up or it may come down. One of my friends, I remember, bought a property in London during COVID, and his interest rate went up after the 2-year fixed term, and that meant that his monthly mortgage costs went up by £1,000. Do you know what that is for your mortgage cost to go up by £1,000? And at this point in time, it is your house, so you cannot just up and leave as you would have with a rental. If your landlord decided to increase your rent by £1,000, you could have just, packed it up and moved somewhere else. But it's your house, so you have to find that £1,000 that it's gonna buy. It, you know, and this is why I say that renting sometimes can be a smarter financial decision for yourself, depending on the life circumstances that are happening and where you are in life. If at the point of life that you are, you don't have a lot of shock absorbers to absorb certain things that life may throw at you, is a mortgage really what you should be getting? I don't know. Wouldn't it be better for you to get a shared apartment, maybe then save the extra money as opposed to putting it in a mortgage? Because as much of an investment as it is not a liquid asset, meaning that if something were to happen right now and you needed to liquidate that house, you have a house that's worth £500,000 and you wanted to liquidate that house today because you had an emergency that come up. Best believe that sometimes it might take you over a year to liquidate the house. It is not liquid at all, and this is again where opportunity cost comes into play. So we spoke about, a £50,000 deposit for your deposit, legal fees, solicitor fees, surveyor fees, this, that, and the third. And now, if that £50,000, for example, was sitting in an investment account over the same duration of time, it would have also appreciated. But then the question comes in is, are people that disciplined enough to actually, invest whatever they would have been spending on their property into an investment account that will actually generate returns? Are people that disciplined to do that? That's a different conversation that I don't know about. But if you were to do a direct comparison between a mortgage and investing that amount of money in the stock market, more often than not, investing in the stock market would give you a better ROI. But that's a conversation that we're not ready for. But if you ask yourself the honest truth and do some deep introspection, you would come to the realization that investing in the stock market is probably a better and smarter financial decision. But again, not everything in life has to be about investing. Having security in itself is good enough. It's just the same thing as getting a car. Many times it would cost you less, especially as an individual, to enter public transport, to use the trains, to use the buses. It would cost you less. But does that mean that a car is not a smart decision? No, because the opportunity cost of the time that you've saved because you have a car is good enough. The comfort of just walking to your car and driving off is good enough as well. And you should be content with that. People say a car is a depreciating asset. And so what? Money is for your spending pleasure. Not everything in life is supposed to be an investment. And this is my exact stance on a mortgage on a property that you are living in. It is for your pleasure. If you want to make it an investment, that's where your children come into play, because you have lived in that property for the entire duration of your life, and now you're dying, so you're going to will that property off to your children or whatever. They will then sell the property and use the proceeds of that property how they deem fit, because they didn't invest £1 into that property and now they have all this free money. That is what a real investment is, where you've invested very, very little, but you have now gotten a whole lot out of it. And again, it then just becomes personal preference, whether you want to will that property to your children, what you want to do with it, whether you want to, turn it into, I don't know, an investment property as you start to age so that you can travel the world, whatever the case may be. But in the real and raw sense of a mortgage on a property that you are living in, I don't know. I'm afraid to say it, but I honestly don't think that it is an investment. And I think that what's happened is people, especially with the property boom that happened a few years ago, people just genuinely think that that property boom is going to happen again, like the way it did then. And the reason that property boom happened was because of the World War. Unless a major life event happens, I don't know that that property boom is going to happen in the exact same magnitude that it happened back then. But like they say, historically, investment in property has always been a good thing. And that is, again, for a property that is actually an investment, not for the one that you're living in. Okay? Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section, because I know that this topic is quite touchy for a few people out there. So I am genuinely curious to know what you think. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!